Hey there, happy Thursday! Thanks for joining me for another craft night with friends. My name is Alyssa Thomas from Penguin and Fish, where we make cute embroidery kits for beginners. And I'm here every weeknight at 8:30 p.m. Central Time, and it's a time that we can relax and craft together. So thanks for joining me. We are working on the Splendid Sampler 2 quilt along. There's 100 quilt blocks in here. I think we counted last night. I think I have 34 left. We are working on this one. This is the For Madge block on page 72, and we are finishing up the applique on this tonight. So it's all fused. All we have to do yet is stitch onto there. So that's, I don't even think I need to give it another press. I think we're fine to just start stitching. So that's where we're going to start tonight, and then we may get started on the next block, which will be, let's see, it is the Get to the Point block. So that'll be some foundation paper piecing, and I have all that ready to get started if we get that far tonight. So, all right, let's go, you guys. Okay, so again, here is my quilt block. I just need to go around these shapes with the sewing machine. So that's what I'm headed off to do. Okay. So I don't need my leader on the end here. I can just get going right away. So we'll do that. Thanks again, everyone, for joining me. All right. So I think I'll just kind of go around each one of these individually. I was thinking I could kind of come around like this. Oh, maybe I will still do that. I'm going to come around that edge. Maybe I should go this direction. Yeah, okay, so I'm going to go like so. I'll start kind of on the straighter edge of the piece there. So I'm just getting like a 1/16 of an inch, not even. I'm just going along the edge of my, that inner part of my foot there. And we are just going to squeak along on here. Ooh, that stick there didn't want to go through. The squeaky noise is my foot pedal. I am just barely tapping on it tonight, so we can go around all these small little curves. So I hope everyone's doing okay tonight. All right. Oh, this is just, I can tell already, this is just gonna have to be like a precision night, and I have my shoe on, and that is coming off right now. That just is not working for me at all tonight. Okay, I already feel better. Sometimes I feel like you can get a little bit more precise with the shoe off. All right, I am pivoting now, and I'm going to go around this yellow piece. But I think so far it's looking good. Oh, I thought this was a stain here, but it's just, I can just see through the fabric. It's the underside there. Oh, Becky, I hope it comes out okay. Ooh, it's hard doing these little singular stitches. My machine doesn't, it's not like a new machine that has like the option to always end with the needle in the down position. I don't have anything like that, and it just kind of likes to roll a few more stitches more too sometimes, so this is not the easiest to go around this. Ooh, that's really thick there. All right, let's pivot and get the rest of this little bit. I think there's actually some sparkly ink in this swirl pattern that I never really noticed before. That's kind of fun. Extra little golden shine. So I'm going to do that trick where I pull the threads to the back and tie them off. Then you won't be able to tell where I started and stopped. Oh shoot, that one's going over. Didn't land on the single stitch there. Alright, that's that. I'm not going to back tack or anything. Let's come on up from there. Alright, so I'm going to stay right here. So there we go. That is going around. I think we did a really good job. We're like a 32nd of an inch almost in there. So I need to pull these threads to the back, and how I'm going to do that is pull the threads that are on the back, and it'll pull the front ones back. It'll like be the little loop, and then you can pick those out. I got one. There we go. Oh no, that's the same one. Let's pull the other thread. There we are. That one was a little stuck on the front. Okay, and then I just need to tie these into the knots, and then we got our first little florally, I guess it's the bumblebee, or not the bumblebee, the honeybee. And the way we did it, I think it still looks a little bit like corn cobs because we did that yellow gingham, and I think that looks a little funny. Looks like corn. But I'm going to still call them honeybees. All right, then we can snip. So we've tied that in the back. And now we can't really tell at all where we started and stopped, even though, I mean, you kind of can because I fudged that up a little bit. So, all right, there we are. Now we got to just do that for the other three, and then that's that. So I'm going to hang out here. I think I'll maybe do all of them and then tie them all at the same time. Then I can just keep to the same motions. I'm going to do it the exact same way. I think that worked pretty well. Get my stiletto here though sooner because I don't really need it, but it kind of helps me turn little by little. All right, like right there, I need a pivot. Ooh, I'm getting a little quick here, and I'm getting a little too far in. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if I'm got a little bit bigger seam allowance on this, but I'm just trying to keep them all similar, so I just want that teeny tiny one. It's just around those little edges that it's tougher. All right, we're in the yellow. Ooh, again, doesn't want to move. Rotate. Oh, Marie says it looks so cute with the stitching on the bees. Yeah, I mean, I like it. So I'm not doing anything special. I'm just still using just the plain straight stitch on my machine, the only stitch on my machine, and just a plain neutral thread too. So nothing decorative really at all. And I think it's like a simple elegant sort of thing versus doing a bunch of different stitches or different decorative stitches or doing something that goes over the edge a little bit, like a blanket stitch. I just think this looks nice, just simple straight stitch edge. I've kind of just stuck with it for really both Splendid Sampler quilts, mostly because I don't have that many more options. With my other machine, when that was working, I still don't have it back up and running, but when that was working, I occasionally did like a zigzag stitch, because that's what that machine can do. But I think I just still like this simple little straight stitch on the edge, or a little in from the edge, I should say. So every time I'm rotating, I have to lift the foot just a hair. Otherwise it won't turn. But I have to make sure that the foot's back down before I start stitching again. Otherwise I'll end up with a crazy mess of floss that it'll get all jumbled up. All right, I think I made it around there. So I'm going to take this off the machine. You know what? I think I am going to just pull the threads to the back right now just because they're kind of long and I don't want to get them stuck somewhere else. So, all right, let's see if we've got them here. Okay, got one to the back. There's the second one. Excellent. And now I can fumble with my fingers and try and tie these in a knot. I'm just kind of grabbing both, like 2 ends in this one and 2 ends in this one, and just tying it in a little knot. I think that's just fine. Okay. Snip. All right, there it's coming along. We got those top 2 appliqued on there. So, all right, let's just keep going. We'll be done with this in no time. And then we will start that paper pieced block. I think we'll just start by, I do want to color it in a little bit before starting, just so I don't get confused as we go. But I think we can kind of get going on that pretty quickly. Oh, Marie says, I love this quilt. Each block is so cute, and you really pulled it off with the lighter fabrics. So different and unique. Yeah, that was a big challenge for me, doing all these lighter fabrics. But yeah, I'm really liking how it turned out, or is turning out. We can already get a sense of how it's going to look when it's done, because we are doing the quilt as you go process. So we have like half of it quilted already and partially assembled. So that's kind of cool. So even though it's taking us forever to do these blocks, once we're done, we'll be close to done for real, because we have like the quilting almost all done, or we're doing it as we go, basically. So that's been new for me for this project as well. I love trying something new with each project, or so it might not even be something new, but it's a new idea I want to test, or a technique I want to get better at. I always have some sort of like learning objective to my projects, and for me, this was, can I do a light colored quilt, because all my quilts lately have been just bright and colorful. Can I do a more neutral quilt? And I had some parameters like all the backgrounds have to be white, because there's like cute quilts out there that have all white backgrounds, and I wanted to give that a try. And quilt as you go. I haven't done the quilt as you go technique before, at least on a large scale, like in a quilt, so I wanted to give that a try. So I think those are pretty much my couple parameters. I'm allowed a few other colors, but only like every 5 blocks. Because if I didn't give myself that limitation, I know I would have put it in like every block, and then it would have ended up in like being a super colorful quilt again. And I wanted to try to just have it be like this neutral colored quilt. Pull on these threads. I'm gonna try and pull on them individually if I can get them separated. There we go. All right, that one's up. So I continued my Superman binge today. So last night I finished the last of the Lois and Clark's New Adventures of Superman, that show from the 90s, early-ish 90s actually. It ended like pretty anticlimactically, as if they were planning on doing another season but then never did. Which was annoying, but I'm so sad. And then I watched Man of Steel today. That's the one with Henry Cavill. Then those new movies are super old already. Well, not super old, but like it was made in like 2013. That long ago. The new Superman movies. But I was so disappointed in it. I've seen it before, but like in 2013. But I was so disappointed in it compared to Lois and Clark, because there was just like no like character development or anything at all. And like in Lois and Clark, it's like all character, right? Even if it's just like 90s sitcom-y characters, which, you know, theoretically could be boring or whatever. But anyway, I'm so bummed. I wanted it to, in my head I remember it being just like cute and sweet and stuff, but it was so just like, how many buildings can we destroy and how many action scenes, and it didn't focus on the characters at all. So I don't know, I'm going down this route though still. I'm gonna watch the next one, which is the Batman versus Superman, and do that. I have seen all the New Girls. I love that show. It is freaking hilarious. I think I've actually gone through the series more than once. But I actually just recently, within the past, I don't know, 2 years, finished the New Girls again. I would sort of watch those again though. Those are fun. I do like those, but that is exactly the vibe. Like New Girl, though, that's what I need in my TV now. And I can stop talking about it. It's just like so sad that my show's done. Oh, Marie says I used to watch Lois and Clark too, but wow, it was a long time ago. I know it was. I watched it too when it came out in real life on real TV, and I remember just really liking it. But you know, normal TV is like here and there, and they have repeat episodes, and so now watching it all in order, like on binge time, is just awesome, and it's just cute and sweet, and they're just silly. I mean, it's totally corny and weird too, because it's the 90s. I think it started in 1993 is what it said on the thing. But completely entertaining to watch in the background. So, and I miss it already. I finished it last night, and I totally am sad it's over. Oh, you don't know if you could watch New Girl twice? I think it's so cute. I mean, I didn't watch it 2 times in a row. I just think some of their, like, inside jokes, I would have to, like, really think about that now to remember them, but they're all just funny. I mean, I don't think it's the best show out there or anything like that, but entertaining enough for me to have on in the background and have it be cute and sweet. Ooh, the old I Love Lucy's. Are those available? Are those available somewhere? Do those have laugh tracks? I can't deal with the laugh tracks. I tried to watch the new Full House. You know, they redid Full House a couple of years ago. I couldn't do it. And I couldn't watch the old Full Houses either. Or the Friends. I couldn't watch the old Friends. I just cannot deal with the laugh track situation at all. So, ugh. I think that's it. Let's snip this and bring these to the back, and we got this guy done. Oh, I went a little farther than I thought. I guess I couldn't see it very well. So I'm hoping this Batman and versus Superman one that I started now which is the next one after the first Henry Cavill Superman one. I'm hoping that builds the character a little bit more of these guys. I don't expect it to, though, after watching it, but I just want to watch. I want it to be Lois and Clark. Like, I wish those characters were Lois and Clark and they redid like the sitcom. The actors in the new movies. That would be awesome. If Amy Adams and Henry Cavill just did the Lois and Clark series all over again, and it was just the same. That'd be amazing. Okay. Whew, we are done with this guy. So there we are. So 2 blocks so far this week. Both very, like, I was going to say like graphic blocks, but like just very pieced. It's not, depicting something. Non-pictorial blocks. I suppose, we got our abstract honeybees there, but I am super duper happy to have both of those done. And hey, it's not even 9 o'clock yet, so we got a pile of time to start on the next one. And I'm going to do that because I would love to get another one done. I don't know if we'll get this one completely done, just because I haven't paper pieced in a while again, so I have to think it through again. So this is the next block. Get to the Point by Rhonda Pierce. It's supposed to look like the tip of a needle, basically. So kind of like a sewing needle or like a sewing machine needle that kind of goes down. I think so. They say representing Schmetz needles. That's fun. Okay, so that's the plan. So I have two printouts here, and I want to, like, one is going to be, I think one will be what I cut out and sew onto, and the other one I will cut out each shape, and that will help me cut my fabric pieces. So I think that's the plan. Okay, so this will be interesting. All right, so I do want to get my fabric out again here. All right, and I think, first of all, there's just 2 colors in this one. So the background color, where it's that red, I think I'm going to do white, because that's one of my rules. I mean, ideally, I'd love this red and the white together. I'd kind of like to do something like that, but I think I'll just do the white for the background, because that's my rule. When I can do white, I will, for a background, I'm going to do it. So that's that. And then we just have to pick a needle color that'll look cute on that back. And I need enough because there's a bit of pieces there. So let's kind of see. I kind of love, like, this popped out at me, the stars, but I think that's maybe too much. I think something plain would maybe be good. I'm wondering, I don't know if I want to be as bold, though, because this is pretty contrasty. Like, as far as my fabrics go, this is probably one of my darkest ones. Oh, this is going to get confusing, too. So with foundation paper piecing, you really need to know what the back and the front is, like, all the time. So this is a batik where the back and front are basically the same, so I think that's just a recipe for confusion. This one's kind of like a batik, but I don't think it is. Oh yeah, there, I can tell the front and back of this one. Maybe we just go like this yellow, the lighter yellow. So I don't have enough of like the gingham or anything like that. I could do like the funny animals, but I kind of want to save that for some fussy cutting or something. Oh, we do have this lighter color. Okay, so I kind of like this, maybe a little paler. I kind of like this. I think I'm going to go with this one. It's almost the color of the thread I'm using, and I have enough of it. I think I'm going to go with that. All right, let's put all this back in the bin. Okay, so what tools do I need? I'm going to get my add a quarter ruler. I'm going to want that. I'm going to get a postcard. My paper piecing tools are the printout, postcard, my add a quarter ruler. So this is that ruler that has a bump out at that's a 1/4 inch big, and that's going to help me get a perfect 1/4 inch seam allowance every time. So I like this tool. And then I'm actually going to get my colored pencils out here. And the first thing I like doing on this is taking one of the designs, one of the printouts, and actually coloring in the shape. So luckily this one only has 2 colors, so I'm just going to grab this guy here, and I'm going to look at the design and just everything that's going to be this light tan I'm going to color in, and then everything else I'm going to just leave white because I have the white fabric. So I mean, you might be like, well, why bother? There's only 2 colors, and I can figure it out. Well, eventually all this will be like cut apart and stuff, so it'll be a little bit more difficult to know what's what. Actually, I haven't done this in a while. Do I usually color the one that I cut apart, or the one I don't? I think I kind of go like this. So I think this is how I do it. It's been a long time since we've done it, like months and months since we've done a foundation paper piecing. So I'm gonna have to like see if I remember how to do it all. But see, okay, so I colored in all of these, the parts that are gonna be the cream. Again, with this one, I probably could have figured it out without doing it, but it just gets rid of all like room for error, because I know for sure to use the tan whenever I'm on one of those pieces. So it'll be just a hair more helpful. Okay, so let's grab my scissors, and we have two parts here. So we have a part A and we have a part B, and we do have a 1/4 inch seam allowance kind of drawn in to the edge. We don't actually need that, but I'll cut along that line anyway. We're going to use the inner line to measure our 1/4 inch seam allowance off later, so I don't actually need these to be all that perfect. So I'm going to just roughly trim around the edge here. Oh man, look at this tiny foundation paper piece thing. I think we did that one. We did that one pretty early in the Splendid Sampler land here. All right, I don't need any of those. So we're going to do this in 2 sections. Oh, the other tool that I'm going to want is a glue stick. So, ooh, this is like a new glue stick. Oh, I don't even think I have it open. I think I have another one like this. Permanent glue stick. Oh, these are permanent. Huh. I don't think I want that. I want, let's try this one. So this is my normal like sew line glue stick. This is more like a kid's glue stick that you'd get at like Target or something like that. That's what I want. This one, I don't know, I must have been cleaning up and found these. These are permanent glue sticks. That freaks me out a little bit. I'm actually probably gonna not have those out here. I don't know what I'd use the permanent ones for. This would I think come off in water potentially. All right. Okay, so let's start with the A piece. So here is how we read one of these. So first of all, I know this is the A piece because it has an A. So you'll have like some text here. It'll be a letter and a number. So the letter comes first, and the letter stands for what like grouping we're working on. So we have the A grouping and the B grouping, and I know that because there's an A in front of every single one of these numbers. Sometimes when you get a pattern, it won't be divided all nice like this. It'll be all together like one big giant picture, and then you have to look for all the A's. And then I have to like physically cut the B's away from the A's. So you might have to like look for it. But in this case, in the Splendid Sampler book, they have them all separate. So, all right. We have, okay, the A's, and then you'll see there's a number behind each of these. So like A1, A2, A3. The numbers represent the order that we're going to sew them in. So we're going to start with A1 and move on to A2 after that, then A3, 4, 5, then 6, 7, and 8. And you'll notice that in each section, like for example, this A section, you'll start with a piece, and every piece after that will slash it in some way. So this A2 is going to slash the A1, A3 slashes A2, and then you can see A4 slashes across both of them. Same with A5, and then A6 slashes against all of them. So you need to go from the least slash piece like kind of out a little bit. But you don't really have, that's just if you're wanting to design something, but like really we just need to follow the letters and numbers. So A1, A2, A3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That's the order. In this case we go B1, B2, B3. So all right, let's start with the A section here. So the other thing, I have this extra piece here. You can color this in too if you want. But what this is for me to help visualize it on the actual fabric. So we can do that already. So I'm just going to cut out this A1 piece. And this doesn't have to be perfect either, because this is just going to help me cut pieces. It's not going to matter more than that. So I'm just cutting out this A1. And actually, we're going to need to get the iron going too. It's starting to come back to me, you guys. Like I said, it's been a little while. Okay, so we have the A1 piece right there. This is just my template. This is what we're actually going to be sewing onto. So another thing we need to know about foundation paper piecing, we'll be sewing on this side, the side with all the diagrams and everything. But this is actually the back side. So when we flip it around like this, that will be the front. So we're actually going to put the fabric on the back with the wrong side up. And then when we flip, this will be the correct side. So in our heads, we always have to think that this is actually going to be the reverse of what it's actually going to look like when we're done. This particular design, it looks the same either way because it's a mirror image of each other. But like normally, you'll have to remember that, okay, this is the back, this is the front. All right, let's do it. So A1, here's my guide, that is a tan fabric, because I know, because we colored it in tan. So I'm going to get that fabric out. I'm going to get my pressing mat out here as well. And okay, so the back needs to be up. So you can see the back of the fabric, the wrong side of the fabric. The right side of the fabric is down. And what we need to do is, oh, this is cut like such a nice, I don't have any weird blobs coming off of this fabric. That's rare for the Splendid Sampler. All right, I'm just going to press a little area so we just have a nice area going. But we need to get a piece that's as big as our A1 piece. That's our piece right there. But have a generous seam allowance around it. And I am extra generous with paper piecing seam allowances, because you can always cut them down, and we will be cutting them down, but you can't add them back. So if you slip a little during this process, you're going to want them bigger than smaller. So All right, so I actually go like a good 1/2 inch. So I'm gonna just kind of stick that there, and this does not have to be perfect. The fun thing about foundation paper piecing is that it can be the blobbiest, craziest shape, and it's always gonna turn out beautiful and perfect. Okay, so that's my shape. I have it in the same way that I have the matching shape here, so it's my A1 piece. Okay, so the one pieces in each one of these is, we're going to treat it the same way, which will be different than all these other pieces. We are going to attach it with glue. So what we want, again, is our piece of fabric that's as big as our shape plus the generous seam allowance. So you can see I can place my paper on here so that I can see my shape, my A1 shape, and I can see that my fabric is like big around that shape. So that's where I want to position this fabric. So I'm going to actually glue that down. We only glue the first one, so I'm actually going to put a little dab on the top of that piece and a dab kind of towards the bottom. And let's place that in the middle here. Again, the wrong side is up. And that's basically it for the first piece. So that's so silly. Piece 1, like in this case A1, B1 will be doing the same thing. The first piece is always different than doing the rest. We're just cutting our shape that's as big as our piece plus that generous seam allowance and gluing it down. So this is literally the front of our design. This is our design so far. And we're going to keep shaping it with every piece that we put on. So there we go. I know this sounds super, super duper confusing, but it will start to make sense, I think. In this particular method, I think it'll make sense too. It actually becomes really relaxing after a while once you get the concept of it. But right now, remember that this is the back. You flip, and that's the front. And the first piece, we just glue right on there. Okay, we're ready to move on to the second piece. So that's literally all there is to it for the first piece. Just glue it onto your page. Second piece. Okay, our second piece is A2. We did A1. The next piece is A2. All right, so we, again, need a piece of white fabric now, because I'm seeing that it's not colored in, so I know that this is white fabric. That's the first thing we need to know. I need to cut a piece of fabric for this. So it needs to be as big as this A2 shape plus the big seam allowance again. So to help me out, I'm going to cut that piece out of here. I don't really need to use this extra template piece all the time, but it is helpful. So I'm going to just cut the A2 piece out. So again, this is the same. This is my duplicate copy here. This is my same thing as here. So A2. Okay, this is going to be a little tricky because I have white fabric, and the white fabric doesn't have a right or wrong side, so I'm going to have to remember what the right and wrong side is. So I want the generous seam allowance around here. However, the line that connects A2, like the piece that you're currently working on with everything that comes before, that's the line that we're going to be working on right here. I'm a little over explaining it here, but as we get going, I think you guys will get it a little bit more. So we're working on A2, but A1 came before that, so the line that both of those touch is this one right here. So that's going to be the line that we ultimately sew on. And so that's the same line as right here. That I want to get on a straight edge. So I have kind of like some built-in straight edges with, being on the edge of this fabric. So I'm going to just use those. So I'm going, a little closer, like more of a 1/4 of an inch. But then the rest, I'm going to do my blob. So just my at least a 1/2 inch all the way around kind of blob. Okay, so I'm going to set that aside for a second here. All right, time to get the cutting mat out. And I think we'll get our little baby one here. All right, I need to prep this piece before I can sew this piece onto it. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to take my my postcard, and what you want is something that's kind of thick like this, and with like a nice edge to it. So like a file folder or a postcard like this works great. I'm going to cover up the piece that we did before and keep the piece that we're doing now, the A2 piece, visible, but I'm going to put my postcard right along that line that we talked about, the line that's in between the A1 and the A2. So right there, I'm going to put my postcard on that line, and I'm going to fold this whole entire piece back. So what we're basically doing is folding along that line, but anything over the number that we're working on, so that we're on A2, anything above 2, I'm not going to worry about. So you can see I folded through like this A5 and A6. I don't care about that. All I care about is the one I'm working on. So I'm going to fold on that line. And by doing that, I've exposed this fabric here. Now I want to cut it into that perfect 1/4 inch seam allowance. So you can take a ruler and just like your normal acrylic fabric ruler, and just put it on there. But this is where I like using my add a 1/4 ruler. So it has this is meant specifically for paper piecing. So here it has a special lip on here that's a 1/4 inch. This allows me to just put it on the edge of my postcard, and because my postcard has a thickness to it, it's just going to stop. So my 1/4 inch bump on here is just going to stop on the postcard. Then I can cut with my cutting glove on. I'm going to trim this seam allowance. This is garbage. And now I can remove the ruler, and look, we have a perfect 1/4 inch seam allowance here. And at that point, I can fold this back. All right, so here we are. Our piece now has like this perfect seam allowance. So we want to match our A2 piece. That's this right here. We want to match this nice seam allowance, this edge, with the nice seam allowance that we just did. So I'm going to hold this like this is the back of the fabric here. I'm going to put those edges next to each other like so, and then fold them as if I'm putting right sides together. Okay, so I don't need this anymore. Now we have this white edge perfectly matched up to the 1/4 inch seam allowance that we just did. All right, so I'm going to hold that there. I want to run a test now. So this is my little test to see if we positioned the fabric right. Because, you know, I can put this on any part of this edge, right? So how do I know where to put it, especially when the shapes get really goofy? I mean, this piece is large enough that I'm going to be fine. But let's just do a test. So I'm going to pretend sew along my line by putting a couple pins in here. Again, I know this all is kind of a lot right now, but I think as we get going, it'll make a little bit more sense. All right, so I pretend sewed there, and now I'm going to pretend press. We're just doing a test right now. So I'm just folding that open and pretend pressing. And this is my check to see if the fabric I cut is still as big as my piece I'm working on, plus the generous seam allowance. And it totally is. I can see all this seam allowance. So I know that I'm going to be able to sew this and have it be in a perfectly fine spot. So now I can go to the machine and actually sew. This will be our first part that we sew here. So my edges are still matched up, and I'm going to sew into the seam allowance, and I'm going to sew along that line, but I am going to stop right when it hits another line. So it runs into this A5 piece here. I'm going to stop right before it gets there. And I'm going to do a backwards tack too. So just, I'm going to go reverse for a few stitches. Not everyone does that. And we've tested it both ways. I personally still like doing a back tack. I'm actually going to make my stitch length smaller as well, so I just lowered it, and that's going to put a lot more stitches. Ooh, that's maybe a little too low. It's going to put a lot of more stitches into the paper, and that's going to make it easier to tear later, because we're actually making like perforated paper by sewing through this, by adding all these holes with the sewing machine. That's going to make it easier to tear later. All right, so I got to that. I'm at that A5 line, so I'm going to stop. I'm going to go backwards, though, a couple stitches, and forward again, just to kind of lock that in place. All right, and then we will lift up and trim. And I also like trimming right at the paper right away, and then going to this side and trimming that extra piece right away. I don't want all of these ends flailing around everywhere. That's just going to get super messy. So, all right, that's our first piece sewn. You can see my small itty-bitty stitches right on the line there. Okay, so next up, I'm going to get the ironing mat out again. This turns into a crazy little dance that we do here, but it really is gonna get easier. Yeah, Nolene says it can be very confusing, but when you get it, the light bulb comes on. So as we get going, I think it'll start making more sense, and what I'm talking about will like make more sense too. I know I'm throwing a lot of terms out there, a lot of little things. All right, so I'm gonna flip this over, and I'm going to open this up. So that's our A1 piece and our A2 pieces. I'm going to actually finger press this just with my finger. And you can see that, you know, we only sewed to that edge, right? So I have all this floppy end. That's why I want to finger press. I want to extend that past the part that we sewed. And then I'm going to get my iron, and we're going to press it for real. When I press, I always want my the side that has like the coloring on, the letters, all that. I want that down. I'm always going to have the side up that has the fabric on. So we're just going to give that a press. And believe it or not, that is our first and second piece. That's our A1 piece and our A2 piece. It looks crazy. It looks like two crazy blobs. But we do have a nice refined little straight line there. And as we keep going, we are going to add more straight lines. And all those straight lines are going to turn into this shape. So that's the first and second piece. And we're done with those two pieces. So next up, we can move on. Next up is A3. So I'm going to go a little bit quicker through this process, and I think me just going a little bit faster is going to make it make more sense. So I think first I'm actually going to prep this line. So we're on A3 now. So there's lines all over the place, right? So what line do you want to do? You're concerned with the line of the one that you're working on and whatever came before. So we're on A3. Well, what came before? Well, A2 and A1 came before. So what line is touching both of those? And it's this one right here. So I can ignore that line. I can ignore that line. I can ignore this. The two that are connected between the one that we're working on now and what came before is this line right there. So this whole entire time, I'm going to be only worried about that line. All right, so let's start off this time by doing our postcard. I'm going to cover up what we did before so that A3 is exposed, and I'm going to put the postcard right on that line that we just talked about. I'm going to ignore all these other lines that come later. I'm not even going to bother with those. I'm going to fold up on that line, exposing that seam allowance again. That's super wonky. but not for long, because we're going to cut our 1/4 inch seam allowance. I'm using that add a 1/4 ruler. It just makes it fast and easy. You don't have to measure, you just know it's a 1/4 inch. Remove that extra. Perfect, perfect 1/4 inch seam allowance. All right, and we can flip that back. So our A2 nice seam allowance is all done. All right, so let's look at our A3 piece. All right, so first of all, it's tan, so I need the tan fabric. And I'm going to cut out that A3 template piece to help me get the right size of that fabric. So again, this is identical to this A3 piece. All right, the wrong side of the fabric is up, and again, the edge that's going to be sewn next to that folded edge that we just did our nice, super nice seam allowance, that's going to be our straight edge. So I want to find a straight edge on here again that's going to match this straight edge. So how about like right there? That's close enough. Yeah, I think that's fine. There's a few extra fuzzles on there, but we can snip those away. So I'm going to put that, and I can always cut a nice straight edge too, but when there's one available, I like to just use it to save time. But all right, so that's about a 1/4 inch, but the rest of this, we are going to get our big blob going on. So there we are. All right, so that straight edge has to match up with the one that we just cut. So we're going to put the right sides together, and that edge, we don't need that anymore. This edge, the two edges will line up. So now when this is sewn, it should be big enough that it covers our spot plus the generous seam allowance. If you want to test it, you can put the pins in and flip it and test, but I've just been cutting my pieces big enough that I know it's going to be in the right spot, at least for this one. So, and I can test by just kind of folding it at that 1/4 inch seam allowance, and yes, my piece is still much bigger than that A3 piece. So I'm going to just go ahead and sew. So let's match those edges together again. We'll flip, and I'm going to sew along that line, and I'm not going to go over where it connects with another line. So this time I'm going to start right there. We'll do our little, ooh, come on, sewing machine. We'll do our little backwards stitch there. If you go over the line a little bit, that's not going to matter. Okay, and now all the way to the end. If you run into a seam allowance, so not one of these other lines, but if you do run into a seam allowance, that you can go into. So I'm going to stitch all the way through the seam allowance there, and then we'll add another little back tack. So this does get really relaxing. It's nice because you don't have to, you can just cut right, or you can sew right on these lines. It's kind of like a coloring book a little bit, I feel like. All right, let's snip these little ends off. Okay. We are ready to press, so let's get our pressing mat out. We're going to do our finger press and extend that edge. So just finger press first, and then we'll press the rest of it. And now that piece is done, and you can see that we are definitely starting to carve out this white area. Our A2 piece is now almost completely carved out, except for these little bottom areas. But there we go. So we keep shaping it with every new piece. So that's done. We can move on to the A4 piece, and I think we'll do that one more piece tonight, and then we'll pick this up tomorrow. Oh, Devlin says, this is great. I'm getting ready to do this on my new quilt. Ooh, Prism by Zen Chic. I wasn't sure if I could do this. Thanks for showing. So we will be doing this again tomorrow, too. So this is like a mini intro, and we'll be doing it more tomorrow. Amy says, I only glue the first piece. Yep, same here. I've only glued that first piece, which is this A1. And actually, after you've sewn it to another piece, you can kind of pull it away. So there, I pulled it away from the paper now, so now it's not glued down at all anymore because it's attached now with this other seam. So all right, we got the A1, A2, A3 pieces completely done. And remember, so this is the back, that's the front. What's next? A4. So okay, so now we got a different looking piece. We got this triangle that's cutting into here. So what's the line that we need to think about again? So it's whatever line, because there's all these other lines, right? It gets confusing. What line do you need? It's the one the piece that you're working on now, which will be A4, and whatever happened before. In this case, this line crosses over the things that happened before, which are A3 and A2, A1 as well, but like this line happens to cross over both A1 or A3 and A2. So this is the line that we're concerned with. Not this one, because this one is connected to A8. This one down here is A6. We don't want that one. We want the one that's connected to the parts that happened before. So this is the only line we are concerned with. We don't care about anything else. All right, so let's start there. I'm going to get my cutting mat again, plop this down here, and get the postcard. We are going to cover up everything that happened before, completely ignoring anything that happens later. Cover up everything that happened before, put the postcard on our line, and I can see the piece that we're currently working on, the A4 piece. Okay. Is that circle applique down? There is no circle on this. Is that circle applique down? Gina, I'm not sure what circle you're referring to. All right, so I'm going to cover up what happened before. I'm on that line. I'm going to ignore everything that happens later. So I'm going to actually just fold right through this later piece. I'm going to fold, boop, like so. Now here's all our seam allowances. And we got some seam allowances from several different pieces here. That's totally fine. Let's measure our 1/4 inch. Again, I'm using the add a quarter ruler to help me with that. And then let's trim through all of this stuff. Zoop. So you can see like my giant seam allowances. I mean, I have a ton of seam allowance left over. So you might think, oh, I'm wasting fabric. But again, it's so much harder if you sew a piece on wrong and then have to take it off and do it over because your paper can tear. It's a whole other pile of craziness. So doing large blobs is way better than doing just like a perfect 1/4 inch measured all the way around and then sewing it on. So all right, let's move that. There's our nice 1/4 inch seam allowance. We can fold that back. Okay, so we're prepped, and now let's look at our piece. Okay, first of all, it is colored tan, so I know it's tan fabric. So let's get this guy out again. This is why it's so nice, even with a simple kind of design, to color it in beforehand, because it can get confusing so fast. Like I can just accidentally turn it upside down, and if none of this is colored in, then I don't know what's what. But coloring it in, it is a quick visual on what fabric to use. So tan fabric, again, I'm putting the fabric with the right side down, so the wrong side is up. And just to make it easy, let's cut out our template piece to help us cut our fabric. This is the A4 piece. Okay, and we can match it up with the A4 piece here. There we go. So this is the edge that we'll be sewing on, and that's the edge that I want to have a nice, clean, straight edge to it. So I'm just going to actually continue down the line here. Soon I will actually cut straight edges out of here, but just for tonight, I'm going to just find myself another easy straight edge. So I started by putting it down this low, but then that's not a big generous seam allowance down by this point. So I'm going to scooch it up. So where I'm going to sew, that I can be a little bit closer to the edge, but everywhere else I want my big blob. So I can plop that down, roughly cut my big blob, and there we go. Okay, so that edge still, that A4 edge, that's the edge that's going to match up with our seam allowance that we just did. So now this one we'll test this one. So all right, so those two edges match up. I'm going to put them right sides together so those edges are touching. But now this is kind of tricky, right? Like, this is a weird angle. Where is the right place to put this on this line? I'm going to guess like right in the middle. It's not always, though. Sometimes it's shifted this way, sometimes it's shifted this way. But our goal is that once it's sewn, it covers our piece that we're working on plus the seam allowance still, right? So I don't want to accidentally make my seam allowance too small. So let's do a test, because I'm not positive I've put it in the right place. I am kind of trusting that I'm doing these big blobs, so I have a lot of leeway with my extra seam allowance. So if you're doing smaller seam allowances, absolutely test every single one. All right, so we're going to test press now. Why don't you cut two? Oh, I could do that. So Kimberly says, why don't I cut two? I could cut two mirror images. I could have cut A4 and A5 at the same time because they're similar shapes. They're mirror images. So I could have, in theory, cut both of those at the same time. But for the sake of just going through, this for the first time, I'm going to just treat each piece as its own part of the process, just so I don't confuse myself. But if I was getting really into this, or I was making several of these blocks at once, or I was in like a real clear mindset, then yeah, I could cut. There a lot of these, like A7 or A8 and A7 look pretty much the same. I could cut those at the same time. A3, A1 were pretty much the same. They were mirror images, so I could have cut mirror images. But I'm just going to go one thing at a time for this. But yes, I could have cut both of those at the same time. All right, so let's do I didn't look at our test yet, so I'm going to test press. So now I got to ask my question, did I cover my piece plus the generous seam allowance? And yeah, I still got I got a nice big seam allowance here yet. And I got a decent seam allowance here. I mean, it's not as big as this side, so I could shift it all up. And why don't we do that? So let's say that seam allowance was just too small. Like, let's say it's here. If I flip it up, then I'm like, oh, that's not a 1/4 inch seam allowance. That's only like an 1/8 inch seam allowance. I got to move this piece. So I did not place it well to begin with. I got to scooch it a bit this way. So I'm just scooching it down the line. My edges still match up. All right, let's test sew that now. So I'm going to test sew it again with my pins, fake sewing it. Okay, let's fake press. We're going a hair over tonight, but I think that's fine. All right, now let's check again. Oh yeah, much bigger seam allowance, from the edge of our A4 piece. So I think that was smart, shifting it a little bit. So all right, now I can remove my pins. You can actually leave the pins too if you want. I'll leave them this time. And I'm going to sew along our edge there. I need to move them before I sew that area, so I'll take the first one out, leave the second. You'll want to have pins, especially if you have a really big piece. I mean, with the Splendid Sampler, all these pieces are pretty small, but in a bigger project, you might want to pin quite a bit all the way up the line, actually. All right, I'm on the edge of that A4. I went a little bit into this other piece, but not too bad, so I'm not going to worry about it. And let's back tack. Oops, there. And now I'll go forward along the line. I can move that pin. And I'm not going into a seam allowance on this one. I'm just going to hit this A8 piece, so I'm going to stop right when I hit it, and then we'll back tack. and go forward again. There. You can kind of start seeing how this becomes like a little bit of a dance. I kind of call it like the circle. So you do the cutting prep, then you do the, sewing, and then the pressing, and it's just kind of this circle in your workspace. All right, so I'm trimming all my little ends there. All right, we're cleaned up. So next part in the dance is our pressing. So let's finger press that piece that we just sewed over first. Extend those edges, and now hit it with our iron. I love sewing each piece on because with every piece, I think of it like carving. So every piece we are carving our shape a little bit more. See, we're carving this white piece here, so it has that little arc. See, we got this little kind of arc going. We're carving it out with each piece. So that's it. We're done with A4. That pressing is the last part of the process. So, we'll pick this up tomorrow, but we're going to do A5 next, which is going to carve out this edge. And then I think A6 is down here. That'll finish our little edge here. And then our last carving is carving the sides. And then the A piece is done at that point, really. And then we'll do the same process with the B piece, and then we'll have to sew them together to create our final piece. Kimberly says, I get it, and then I don't. Yeah, I'm saying a lot out loud tonight because I'm also trying to explain it to myself again, because I also have to kind of remember how to do it every time I do it, because it is a bit of a process. But as you get going, and we'll see that tomorrow, as you get going, you get in the groove of okay, now I'm gonna get my postcard and cut the seam allowance off for the next one. Then I'm gonna cut the piece out. Then I'm gonna sew, and then I'm gonna press. It kind of gets in this little circle in your workspace, and you just keep carving away all of these little pieces. It really gets kind of relaxing and fun. And actually mindless after you do it a while, which is crazy because it looks like this big scary thing, and it until it clicks, I think, then maybe it is a little, but I'm hoping this is helping a little bit, and we'll continue the process tomorrow for sure. There's a little bit of a process when you put the whole thing together as well, so I don't know, I think this went pretty fast today, and we did that whole other block today too, so I see no reason why we shouldn't be able to get this whole thing done tomorrow. This actually goes like this because these are the right sides. But it'll look like this soon. So cool, you guys. I know this was a little bit crazy, but this will get easier as we do it. All right, so thank you guys again so much for joining me for that. It's coming, and we got this guy done tonight as well. We are cruising on these blocks this week. We're gonna have 3 finished blocks in 1 week. That is pretty dang good for the Splendid Sampler, these blocks. So we got lucky this week with lots of blocks that we could finish. And then just a reminder, our holiday stitching bundle is out. This is where we have re-released 6 of our embroidery of the months, our holiday related embroidery of the months, so you can start stitching and have them done by the holidays. And we have it at a huge discount there, 55% off the bundle, which is a ton. It's like over $100 off basically. So of the whole bundle. So check that out. I have the link for that below. That will go through Saturday. After that, the individual ones will be available, but just at their normal price. So this is the chance to get the whole bundle for way, way, way cheaper and get a couple extra bonuses as well. And if you stitch one of them already, you could give that one to a friend, so you can start like the little gifting already as well. So thanks for checking that out, and I will see you guys tomorrow at 8:30 p.m. Central for some more foundation paper piecing. It's gonna get relaxing and fun. I'm excited. So all right, see you tomorrow. Good night.